If you're looking for your next home in a master plan community, chances are you've come across some beautiful options in Firethorne and Katy. But choosing a place to live is more nuanced than just choosing the home itself. So in today's video, we're going to cover things that you need to know about Firethorne, along with a couple of pros and cons. Hi, I'm Carolyn Bauerschlag, a local resident and realtor right here in Katy, Texas, and I've helped hundreds of people relocate from all over the country right to our great city. If you're considering a move to the area, I would love to add you to our client family. Firethorne is located south of I-10 and on the westward edge of what we would consider Katy or Katy ISD. And this neighborhood broke ground sometime in late 2005 and completed in the middle of the pandemic around 2023. Now, Firethorne at completion is about 3,300 homes, which isn't overly large, but it's also not a small community either. Now, one of the things that I love best about Firethorne is that the build quality is extraordinarily high throughout the entire community. You've got builders in the neighborhood like Highland Homes, David Weekley, David Powers. You've got Ravenna, you've got Coventry, you've got Perry Homes. So there's a high consistency, I would say, in A-plus builders throughout the neighborhood. And as this neighborhood has turned into 10 to 15 years old, it really looks excellent. Now, one of the most important things you need to know about Firethorne is that the zoning pattern is split between Katy ISD and Lamar Consolidated. Now, about 2/3 of Firethorne is in Katy ISD, and I would say a lot of people move to this area specifically because that little section is zoned to Katy High School. Now, I love Katy High School, and a lot of people do too, and not everyone's super hot on it, but it's a Katy classic, right? It is the OG. Now, the line of demarcation between Lamar Consolidated and Katy is going to be a road called Firethorne West. So pretty much everything east of Firethorne West is going to be Katy ISD, and then Lamar Consolidated picks up on the other side. Now, if you think of Firethorne, think of it in terms of like moving east to west in terms of age. So some of your older things are going to be along the main artery through Firethorne called 1463. Now, 1463 is it connects directly into I-10, and it hasn't been the easiest commute along that neighborhood for about the last 4 years. It's probably going to be difficult for the next couple of years as construction completes. But in general, I would say that egress, ingress in and out of this neighborhood is pretty good. So tagging back to the Katy ISD side, when you buy in Firethorne, what you're going to see is that there tends to be a value bump where you're going to pay a bit of a premium for a home that's zoned on the Katy ISD side over the Lamar Consolidated. And this just is purely because of the school districts. Homes on the Lamar Consolidated side tend to sell for a slight bit less and a little bit slower than the ones that sell on the Katy side. Now, one of the best things about Firethorne is that your money goes pretty far in the neighborhood. Right now, I would say values range anywhere from about $300,000 to get your foot in the door, all the way up to about $1 million on that Katy ISD side. The average price point is $588,000, and that gets you a 3,400 square foot home on a quarter-acre lot, and that's going to be a 4-bed, 3.5-bath, 3-car home. Now, that's significantly more than what we see in, let's say, Cinco Ranch or Seven Meadows, right? So if what's really important to you in your search is wide lots, I would say automatically I'm going to ask you to consider Firethorne. Now, another important thing to know is that the tax rate is incredibly attractive in this neighborhood. As of 2026, the tax rate is 2.25% before your homestead exemption. And in my mind, what I think is that these tax rates tend to be 2.6, 2.7 for most of the neighborhoods south of I-10 and Katy ISD. So if you need your dollar to stretch a little bit further, I would definitely consider this neighborhood. Another thing to know about the Katy ISD side is that Firethorne has its own elementary school just right in the middle of the neighborhood. So it's called Woolman Elementary, and you can stick your children on their bicycle. You can walk your kids to school with a pup if you have them. And it's really very charming. And I love that Katy ISD moved to this format where they're pulling the schools off of the main roads at major intersections. It's safer for everyone, and I think it kind of gives some charm and appeal to the neighborhood. Now, on the Lamar Consolidated side, again, this is just west of Firethorne West. A lot of the homes are going to be newer. So most of these homes started construction in 2012, 2013, and again, completed out towards 2023. Now, the homes on that side of the neighborhood are zoned to Lindsay Elementary, which, like Woolman, is directly inside the neighborhood. So if you still want that walk and bike experience to the elementary school, that absolutely is available to you. Now, the average home on the Lamar Consolidated side is going to be a little bit smaller. You're closer to 2,900 square feet, and the average price in this area is about $488. Now, the good news too is that the tax rate isn't massively different. It's only marginally higher than the Katy ISD side at 2.28%. Another great feature of Firethorne is that you really get to have a very low HOA burden. Now, most of the HOAs out here on the west side, I would say, come with something that's around $1,500 for the year. In Firethorne, you're going to pay about $900 for the year. It does not come with any of those pesky capitalization fees where they charge you 1/4 or 0.5% of the home price in addition to your annual HOA dues at the transaction. So I really appreciate that for folks managing a budget or just not wanting to deal with an HOA. Now, the HOA is not as robust, let's say, as what you might find in Cross Creek Ranch or in Cinco Ranch or across the freeway in Cane Island. But it does have 2 clubhouses. It does have a recreation pool, a lap pool, a fitness center. It's got tons of walking trails, waterways, all that good stuff that you can look at. But you're definitely getting less for the less that you are paying. So if what you want is the feel of a master plan community without necessarily like the burden of the $1,500 or $1,600 a year, again, I would say Firethorne is an excellent option. Now, time and time again, I hear folks tell me that one of the main reasons that they are attracted to the neighborhood is that you really do get wide lots. And I don't mean to harp on this unnecessarily, but like if you are considering relocating to the Katy area, what you need to know is that these master plan communities have developers that really kind of took on like that airplane mentality where they say, hey, we've got this confined space. How many people can we literally shove into these homes and still call it reasonable, right? So I would say like Cinco Ranch, for instance, the lots are not necessarily going to be big. Whereas over in Firethorne, you're going to get not only width on the left and the right side of your home, but you're going to get depth as well. So like the homes are set back decently far from the street, which sounds kind of silly, but like when you're driving through a street, you don't see cars, encroaching, like giving you tunnel vision as you're driving. It leaves room for kids to play basketball in the driveway. It leaves room for people to really just commune with their neighbors, for you to have beautiful landscaping and for you to not feel as closed in. Now, if folks are super interested in, let's say, mature trees, I would say the oldest parts of Firethorne are starting to look a little bit more wooded. But Katy was a prairie land 100 years ago. It was literally rice fields. It was wildlife preserves. So every tree that you see, not every tree, but most every tree that you see in Katy is going to be a tree that has been purposefully planted, right? So in Firethorne, as you move towards the new construction, I would say that you can start to feel like perhaps the land is a little bit more bald, that the shade is hard to come by, and that you're not maybe as insulated. So that is some feedback that we get from folks, but I would say as this neighborhood ages, they've done a really nice job with maintaining those trees and kind of creating a more insulated feel. Now, another benefit to Firethorne is that it is fully out of the floodplain. If you go to any of the county maps or FEMA for trying to figure out the floodplain maps, what you'll find is that Firethorne is solidly in Zone X, or what we call basically no flood risk. Now, there, of course, is no true zero flood risk, but this is like statistically as low as it can possibly get. So what that means for you as a homeowner is that if you wanted to opt into flood insurance, it's going to be the lowest possible premium. You're not forced to carry this coverage at all. Now, I've been a resident of Katy my entire life, and what I know about Firethorne is that it did not flood. So if previous flooding history is a concern to you, you would be solidly out of that area. Another important thing to know about Katy, just in general, is that there is a heavy sports focus or like UIL focus out here. And the vast majority of the practice fields, sports courts, like coordinated youth activity is actually going to be north of I-10 in Old Katy. So a big reason that people like Firethorne is that if your kids are in Katy youth soccer, basketball, if they're in football practices, if they're doing any kind of baseball, a lot of those fields can take up to 30 to 45 minutes to get to if you're coming from the south side. Now, Firethorne butts right up against I-10 almost, right? So like the egress, ingress, and getting to those sports fields is really much easier. And this kind of makes sense to me too, right? Like Katy High School is a school that's gotten a lot of attention nationally, or at least statewide, for their football team. And that sports focus at Katy High School is really a key reason why people move to that area. So if sports are important to you, Firethorne is a great place to be. Now, the last important thing that I want to share with you is that Firethorne has had a lot of improvements with their roadways. If you Google it, or if you have a friend who lives here, or if you've heard anything about Firethorne, I would say 6, 7, 8 years ago, getting in and out of the neighborhood was really quite a challenge. The main way to get in and out was 1463. And even before 1463 was under construction, you basically had a farm to market road that was 2 lanes wide on either side, handling thousands of people trying to get to the freeway. And there weren't really many cut-throughs otherwise to get in and out. Where we are now in 2026 is that you have on the west side, or I'm sorry, on the east side, you have 1463. Then you have another artery that cuts through the neighborhood called Cane Island Parkway. And then you have another artery on the kind of farthest left side called Texas Heritage Parkway. And all of those run straight into I-10. So if for some reason you don't want to deal with a particular road on a particular day, there are at least now 3 major ways that you can hit to I-10, which I think is part of the reason why Firethorne has done so well in the last couple of years. So now let's cover a couple of the pros. One of the main ones I would say is that if you live in Firethorne, you're going to get really solid construction homes that are fairly new, right? So most of these are built, let's say, in the 2000 teens, right? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You're going to get slabs that have post-tension cable systems. You're going to get tech shield in your roof. You're going to get double pane windows. Your HVAC is probably not cooked at this point, right? And like the aesthetics of the home are very much in line with what people like right now, right? So when you couple all of those things about the house itself, these are floor plans that people find attractive. These are finishes that are current or contemporary. The homes are very easy to like, right? And so when you look at larger lots, good floor plans, decent tax rates, excellent schools, you can really start to understand why this neighborhood has done so well over time. Something that you may not know if you're not part of real estate is that single-story homes take up a lot of space front to back on your lot. So when I'm talking about the depth of the lot in Firethorne, it might not mean a whole lot to you, except that I should point out that there are a lot of really big single stories in this neighborhood. Now, that's important for folks that are downsizing out of like a giant 2-story and they say, hey, I don't want to give up my space, but I really want a beautiful single-story home. Well, that requires a large lot, right? So a lot of the 3,500 square foot and larger single stories end up in Firethorne, simply because like if you tried to do that same format on a lot that's like 120 feet deep over in Cinco or Seven Meadows, the house would basically run right up into the fence, and no one really wants that, right? So like retirees love their single story homes. We see a lot of folks that are downsizing out of 5,000 square feet into something smaller. They still want that executive feel single story homes, right? So heavy concentration of those out in Firethorne. Another major pro of this neighborhood is that there's nothing visually obstructive. And that sounds kind of silly unless you've watched some of my other videos. But what I'm referring to is that there are major high tension power lines that traverse the Southwest Katy area and go north of the freeway as well. These are going to be the 6, 7, 8-story giant iron towers with like 40 wires hanging off of them. And there are some beautiful neighborhoods that have them interspersed, and you can see them from a lot of different places. What I love about Firethorne is that it's off the table. You also don't have a lot of like high concentrations of those water treatment plants. Like up and down Spring Green Boulevard, further south in Katy, there's like a little pocket where there's 3 of them right next to each other, and it's kind of awful. But Firethorne doesn't have that. So like you won't see big cell phone towers either. And like they really did a great job with the aesthetics of the neighborhood. So once you kind of get off 1463 and into the neighborhood, you're really going to have that feel of being kind of at ease in nature at home. You can't have pros without some cons. So here's my first one. 1463 itself is a mess. And I don't just mean like the traffic, right? Like eventually the traffic will resolve itself. You can see right now whenever you're driving that the lanes are really wide as you get to I-10. I feel like we're right there on it being opened. But visually, this is really not a very pretty area. I mentioned earlier in the video that this was a farm to market road, right? It was a commercial road. And there were not efforts, I guess, made because these roads existed already to make them like visually appealing. So you have like a lot of those big, not high tension power lines, but like heavy power lines, like no uniformity in like how we're making strip centers. There's lots of strip centers. Kind of getting in and out of these like little cut throughs can be very stressful in my opinion, to make sure that like someone's paying attention and not going to T-bone you as you cross like 6 lanes of traffic at this point. There were no like esplanades made where they put those beautiful mature trees that shade the whole drive. So really when you're going up and down 1463, it can kind of look pretty rough and tumble, commercial, heavy retail-ish. So if that's something that is important to you, I would say tag yourself over into Cross Creek Ranch or go over into Cinco Ranch that are like true giant master plan communities. But that's just me. I just personally don't care for the look of 1463. Now, the second con is subjective, but it does come up, I would say, at least more than half the time. People who don't consider Firethorne will say that it's too far from everything, right? And I think that really just depends on your specific life and what your specific goals are, right? So like if you live in Firethorne and you have to get to the West Park Toll, which is the south edge of Katy, you're going to be in trouble. So I personally would rather cut off my right leg than traverse 1463 in the southward direction in any kind of rush hour. So if that's where you need to be, you know, in order to get on to Beltway 8 to go to the Southwest Freeway or wherever, I would say Firethorne is probably not the right place for you. If you are just trying to get onto I-10, it's great. Now, one of the jokes in Houston is that Houston is an hour away from Houston. And in some ways, I would say Katy is starting to be 30 minutes away from Katy. Right. So like if you are in Firethorne and you need to get to, let's say, a central area, right? Like if you're trying to get to a practice that's over on the east side of 99, that's still Katy, but it might take you 20 to 25 minutes to get over there, which sounds kind of crazy, right? Like I'll give you an example. My son's school, he's 4.5, is on the south side of Katy along Spring Green, which is pretty close to 1463. And he was trying to get to a swim practice, a little swim lesson rather, that was just north of I-10 near Firethorne. And it literally took me around 5 o'clock, 27 minutes to get from the door of his school 6 miles up to the swim practice. And that made me feel like white hot rage, like as a parent, like it's totally inefficient, right? So there are aspects of what people are saying that are true, right? It is far from other things, but like, if what your life is that I'm going to get on I-10 to go to work, I love the schools, and it really helps me to be close to these sports fields, Firethorne is a wonderful option for you. If you're thinking about making a move to Katy or the West Houston area, I would love to be your realtor. Make sure to check the description below where you can find my contact information. And if you found value in this video here today, make sure to click the link below and subscribe because we put content like this out every single week. See you soon.